everyone, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome. My name is Marie, and today I'm going to show you how to build a split level home in The Sims 4, sort of like this house that I built recently. So what I mean by a split level home is a house with sort of staggered floors that's visible from the exterior. This is commonly found in retro or mid-century types of homes, so that's what we'll be focusing on today as well, because I personally just think that that's a lot of fun to do in The Sims. So let's jump right into it. So for today, I loaded into this lot in Oasis Springs, which of course is a base game world, and we're going to create a split level home using terrain tools. I know that for a lot of people, terrain tools are very intimidating and scary, and I actually used to feel the same way, but I've just been playing around with them more and more recently. I am by no means an expert, but I have found my way around the terrain tools a little bit, and I now know what I like to use them for and how I like to use them. So I'm just gonna try to get that point across. So first we gotta visualize what we want to build. So I'm thinking a house with a garage on the ground floor, so sort of like the basement level, if you will, and then we'll do the main floors of the house on top of that. So the second floor, maybe even a third floor if we feel like it, if it looks good, I don't know. We're just gonna try and see what happens. So essentially what we're gonna do is we're going to turn the ground floor, which would be this, into a basement. And we're gonna do that by sort of hiding it in the terrain. Not sure if that's making any sense, but I promise it'll be fine. Let's actually move this back a little bit. I think that would look better. Okay, well that's a little bit too much. Drag it forward. Also, this is by no means a very clean process. From my personal experience, it is a lot of trial and error. It is a lot of adjusting the terrain, but also the shape of the house, and you're just gonna have to trust the process. And if you don't like it, you can always bulldoze and start over, but just know it's a messy process, and that's fine. Okay, so we have kind of created this basement, garage level, whatever. This is what we're gonna work with. It doesn't matter. The only thing that does matter, sort of, is your wall height. So just pick and choose which one you want to go for the basement level. You could go medium, you could go tall. This is important because the height for the terrain that we're gonna create sort of depends on this. It's not like you can't adjust it later, it's just easier if you pick the wall height that you want to go for. So I think I'm just gonna go short. I like short wall height, it's my favorite, and I just think it will look good for this specific house that we're building. Then we're going to select terrain manipulation, and if you toggle on the grid by pressing G on your keyboard, you can kind of see the grid, and that's just gonna help us create the surfaces or the levels with the terrain tool. So the most important one that we're going to use right now is flatten to height. So essentially what this does, if you have a specific height selected, you can kind of see already, it creates a flat surface. And that's exactly what we're going to want to do. As opposed to just raising the terrain, let me just show you the difference. So if we were to just raise the terrain, you can kind of see how it creates this hill, or I don't even know what to call it, but it's like a very pointy, there's no surface to this. This is just terrain going up to the clouds. You know what I mean? And it can look really cool, but it's not what we're going to be using right now. We want to create a surface that we can build on. So we're going to flatten the terrain to a specific height. And if you press Control and one of the bracket keys, it also tells you in the little information panel, but if you press Control and one of the bracket keys, you can lower the height of your surface that you're going to create. So what we want to do is we want to create a surface that is the same height as our garage right here. So you can tell that it's a little bit too high right now. This seems about right. From experience, I know that this is probably still going to be a little bit too high. So I think we want to go like this later, but for now, let's just do this. Let's create a platform that's going to be the same height as this garage. And then you're just gonna draw a hill. It really doesn't matter. You do want to have a little bit of space here, so you don't want to make it too small, because obviously we're going to build the rest of the house on this platform. I call it a platform, which may be a little bit confusing, but you probably know what I mean. On this hill, I should say. So I feel like this for now is okay. You can tell how it creates this sort of gap because the terrain doesn't actually go right up to the wall. There is nothing you can do about it. We're just going to have to work around it, and that's okay. It'll be fine. So now what we're gonna do is we're essentially just going to build the rest of the house. So we have our garage. Now let's say we want to go out to the side just like this. Maybe we want to make that a little smaller. I don't really have any reference for this, so we're just going from scratch here, sort of creating as we go. And I think that's a fun way to do it. Let's put a little roof on this garage as well. A typical roof style that I use for retro homes is this gabled roof and then make it really low like this. I always feel like that looks good on these types of houses. And we're just gonna overlap that. By doing this, you can already tell that we're sort of trying to hide this gap. We'll do more about that with landscaping and other little tricks that I can show you. It's never gonna be fully perfect, but we can get pretty close, you know? So again, we gotta trust the process. Let's see, do I wanna have another level to this house? It can look a little bit intimidating if you do that since we're already sort of building on a hill, you know? But it could be cute. I don't know, let's just give it a go. And I'm just going to continue that same roof line as well because I think it looks kind of cute. Maybe I can create a little overhang like this. I feel like that's pretty typical for mid-century style houses. But now that I'm looking at it, I'm so tempted to just do that, you know what I mean? That's kind of a funky shape. I don't know, I think I kind of like it. It's kind of weird in a good way. Then in the back, it would be nice to maybe create a porch. You can see how the game is already starting to become a little bit finicky where it doesn't want to connect this flat square to the house because it says that we are on different levels. It says can't connect blocks from different levels. Thankfully, there's ways around that. We can just select the room tool, create a room, delete the walls by just pressing Control and drawing over them. Or you can just remove the walls by selecting the hammer tool and just, you know, get rid of them that way. That's also a possibility. So now we have a little back porch. We can very easily get rid of the ceiling by just removing the ceiling, but we can also undo that and create a covered porch. Maybe that's cute for this house. I actually think that's kind of cute. So yeah, let's keep that. This is definitely a start. Now I can already tell that this little piece in front of the house is a little bit too small. So let me just add on to that hill a little bit. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect because we're definitely going back to adjust everything. But this way we have a little bit more space out front to extend the house, maybe add a porch. And we're definitely going to want to add a front porch. So let's just kind of do that same thing we did in the back by placing down a room and deleting the walls. And honestly, we could keep that as a flat roof. I think that would kind of work for the style of the house anyway. So let's put a couple of pillars. Okay, maybe if we make it one bigger, we can center it like that. That is such a pet peeve of mine. I always want to be able to center my columns like this. That's annoying, but this works. And then we could always just create a platform by selecting the platform tool, drawing over this a little bit, connecting it into the roof that way, and that looks kind of cute. Now you can already tell that this is a split level home. We kind of already did it, but of course we want to make it functional and we want to finish it, but that is the main idea. So as you can see, when we zoom in, you can see that the house is sort of floating, and you can also see that the terrain is a little bit too high, if that makes sense. If we go back to terrain tools, you can kind of tell how there is a tiny slope like right here. So in order to get rid of that, we can just adjust the height of the terrain by pressing Control and the left bracket key by making the terrain height a little bit lower and just going over that entire section to make it lower. It'll fit a little bit better this way. And now you can see that the terrain is flat, but the house is still floating. Thankfully, there is a little trick to fix that. Now, obviously, we can't place a foundation around this area because that's the second floor. We could put a foundation here if we wanted to. We could go up and then add a foundation to it. You will have to readjust your terrain here, which is very easy to do. Just go back to terrain tools, select your flatten to height, adjust the height, and go over it again. It's a very easy fix. I don't think I want this on a foundation since this is going to be my garage, and I think I want that to be on street level or like sidewalk level, if you will. The way we can get rid of the space between the house and the ground is by placing an exterior trim. So let's go to exterior trims and select a base game one that is a little thicker. And you can see when you place that all around, it kind of sort of looks and acts like a foundation. And you magically got rid of the floating house, and it looks nice and detailed as well. The only problem is Sims can't actually step over these trims. So we're going to have to place a little staircase to fix that. So I think what I want to do is I want to get rid of the spandrel out front here. So I'm going to hold down Shift on my keyboard and hover over this front section to just delete the front section and not the rest of it. And then we can select any staircase, just place that and drag it across the entire area. And now your Sims can actually step up to the front door, which, you know, is very helpful. I did get rid of this little section here. So let me again hold down Shift and hover over this. So that is now a functional porch, and we can do the same thing in the back. So hold down Shift, delete this front section, select a staircase, plonk it down and drag it across. And there you go. I added a driveway, and this is driving me insane. So I think I might just pick up the entire lot and move it over for the sake of connecting that driveway. And that's gonna place my terrain all the way on the edge of the lot, which is not my favorite, but again, we are going to adjust that anyway, so it's fine. You may ask yourself, how are we gonna get up to this front door? Well, this is where you can get a little bit creative, because we can create sort of a staircase area, we can create a slope going up, just like a pathway. It's really up to whatever you want to do. What I personally usually gravitate towards is we're going to flatten the terrain to height again. We're going to go a little bit lower by just adjusting the height like this. Maybe also adjusting the circle brush a little bit so that it's a little smaller. And we sort of create this second portion of terrain. I always think that looks kind of good. And then we could create a staircase going up by just placing the staircase against a portion of the terrain like this. Do the same thing here. The terrain will kind of adjust for you when you place a staircase, which I think is very helpful. And now, as you can see, we sort of have this straight line down to the sidewalk with staircases. So that is something you can do, which is what I'm most comfortable with and what I think looks cute. So let's just keep it like this. We can go ahead and create a pathway by just selecting a terrain paint of choice and just kind of going like this between the staircases. Again, it's not perfect yet, but it's a little outline of what we have to work with potentially. The terrain still looks very wonky. Don't worry about that, we're gonna fix it. First of all, this goes out way too far. So let's again use the flatten to height terrain manipulation and go down to the ground floor. It's sort of difficult to tell sometimes how high exactly you are, but I think this, yeah, that's ground floor. Okay, perfect. So we could just go over what we want to delete, sort of like this. You can obviously adjust the speed it's going. You could do that down here. You can adjust the softness. You can adjust the speed. I'm going pretty fast right now because it doesn't have to be perfect just yet. I just want to get rid of a little bit of terrain. So that's essentially what we're doing here. I don't want the hill around the house to be too big. So I feel like this is approximately the size I would go for. And then the smooth terrain option is going to be really nice to make everything just a little bit softer. I do like to adjust my brush size and the speed and stuff for this a little bit more. Just go over everything ever so slightly to make it look a little bit more natural, a little bit more seamless. And we're obviously also going to fix things with landscaping, but you can already tell how everything just looks so much more refined this way and just a little bit more natural. Now, there's always going to be these little areas around the walls of the house that'll look sort of weird. And sometimes I go overboard. I basically just deleted all the terrain in this corner, which I don't want that. So I think I'm just going to add some of that back by adjusting to height and then just going over it like this a little bit. And hiding these gaps is where the trial and error really starts for me personally, because I just want it to look as seamless as possible. So a trick I found that really works, which actually does require the Get Famous expansion pack, we're going to draw a little wall from the corner of the garage that we created, sort of going into the terrain. The terrain adjusts itself as you can see, when we do that, but that won't stay. So we'll fix that later. Just add a few walls going this way as well, and we'll delete those again later. But an item that I really like to use for this, grab these vertical beams. I know these are also in city living, they're also in eco lifestyle, so there's different options for this, but since we're going mid-century, I feel like this is the way to do it. So we're just gonna place these along the inside of the wall, and we could also add a column to that. Maybe I'll just get the one that we were already using, this one, plonk it here, and then when we delete these walls, you can see how the terrain snaps back to its original state. And when we drag the roof, we just hold down Shift to drag the eave of the roof going over this way. You can kind of see how we're essentially hiding that portion with a funky architectural accent. I'm not sure what to call it. I do want to make that a little bit more visible. So again, I'm just going to smooth my terrain a little bit here so it lowers itself. It will also lower my column, but we can just make that one a little taller again. Just smooth it a little bit, ever so slightly. And there you go. It's by no means perfect, but it kind of looks cool. It looks like there's something there. And I think that's kind of fun. We can do the same thing in the back. So just drag a wall going out this way, and then, I don't know, maybe 2 walls going inward, placing a couple of those beams, a column, and then just delete these. We can lower the column a little bit, and there we go. Maybe the roof actually comes out a little too far. So if we make that a little shorter, yeah, there we go. That's more natural. So that is a little trick that I like to use. Now let me add a few details on this house, and then we'll continue the landscaping. Okay, so now we've got something to work with. I obviously just did the exterior for this house since that's what we're focusing on, but I feel like it sort of looks cute. Now we have an actual house on a split level. Of course, we still want to, let me change the color of this, by the way, that's really annoying. We want to sort of get rid of that gap, or in any case, try to hide it to the best of our abilities. And landscaping is going to be our best friend when it comes to this. Landscaping on manipulated terrain can definitely be very tricky because plants don't always really want to stick to the manipulated terrain. Sometimes though, it does work out. If you are familiar with debug landscaping, you'll probably know that the plants from debug are the worst when it comes to not wanting to snap to the specific terrain heights. So I actually always try to use regular catalog landscaping that you have to pay for, mind you, it's not free, but it is a way to sort of go around and try to hide your weird little gaps. So you can just grab some plants, kind of go around the edge here. This is definitely hiding that little architectural thing that I did that I thought was so cool, but that's okay. Anything to sort of hide whatever's going on, you know? And this again is just where the trial and error comes into play. It's kind of annoying, but that's just how it works. We just want to place plants how we see fit and just kind of make decisions as you go. There's not a lot of planning to this. You just gotta trust the process. That tree looks sort of cute. I like that. So maybe I kind of want to fix that terrain up a little bit more. So let's maybe smooth this out because it looks a little weird next to the driveway, and it's not my favorite. So let's smooth this out a little bit more. We can even add another window to the garage if we do it this way, which I think will look kind of nice. And maybe we can add one of these trees, or maybe a taller one. That is also a possibility. Yeah, I feel like that kind of works. Maybe we could also add a hedge. Not sure how that's going to behave right now with the terrain being what it is. Obviously, if you're familiar with the tool mod and you have that, you can landscape a lot more detailed. So that is definitely something you can do, but specifically for this video, I'm not using any mods. I'm just using whatever's in the game to kind of keep it simple in that sense. We could add a little window here. That's sort of cute. Maybe some more plants going like this. That looks kind of cute. We basically created this little hill of landscaping to hide that weird gap in the front. And I feel like that looks pretty seamless. Obviously the rest is still really bare, but you get the gist probably. Another thing that I really like to do, if you have the cats and dogs expansion pack, there is this one rock. It's in debug, so you're going to have to activate your debug menu, which if you're not sure how that works, let me show you real quick. Just press Ctrl-Shift-C to open the cheat bar and type in bb.show hidden objects, enter, and also bb.show live edit objects, enter. I do have Better Build By installed, so for me it's a little bit easier to find. Go into the Cats and Dogs debug and then try to find this rock. This one specifically is really nice because it snaps to the terrain really nicely without really needing a lot of tool mod. Obviously with tool mod you can make it a little bit more seamless, but it kind of already works. See, when you place this alongside the terrain, you can size it down a little bit, maybe like this. You can essentially create this really nice border around your hill, and I just personally really like this. I definitely overuse this trick a lot whenever I do houses like this, but it just looks really nice, and this rock is just a lifesaver because you can see how smoothly it works with your terrain and kind of seamlessly borders it, and I love that. So you can just kind of go around the house like this, maybe even sort of border it to the house. Yeah, there we go. Now, we haven't really adjusted the terrain in the back here, but we can definitely do that if we want to use the rest of this lot as more like a backyard space as well. Let's go into our terrain tools, select the flatten to height and adjust the height to a little bit lower. Sort of the same thing that we did in the front. Okay, this needs to go a little faster. Create a second layer of terrain, essentially, so we can have a little bit more backyard like that. Grab a staircase, place it wherever it wants to. You can see how it's being a little finicky. It doesn't really want to, but it wants to snap here. So that's a start. It also wants to snap when we do this. So maybe that's something we can do. And then have a staircase going down to this slightly lower level. Maybe go back into the flatten to height and adjust it with the level of the stairs. Again, when you turn on the grid, you can actually very easily see where your flat surface is being created. And then that I feel like is a nice area for some more backyard space. We can even go into smooth terrain, make the brushes be a little softer and slower, and just sort of go over the edges here to make it a little bit more natural. And I also placed a back door into the garage. So say we want to be able to go from this area to the backyard upstairs, we could just maybe create a little staircase this way as well. There we go. That looks kind of nice. And then Sims can just kind of go all the way around. So yeah, that's really cute. So now it's time to landscape around those rocks a little bit more. There is one low-lying bush in the base game debug landscaping that I really like to use that does work with the terrain really well, and that's this one. It's really big, but that's really helpful. You can easily size it down for a little bit more control, but this one also snaps to the terrain really well, and you can kind of hide your weird gaps with this. So we have this weird gap still in between the garage and the terrain, so we could just kind of place this plant, sort of hover it there. And again, I know it's not perfect, it'll never be perfect, but we can just hide it to the best of our abilities. We could also opt for another one of these rocks, size it down and rotate it. If you hold down Alt, by the way, you can freely rotate. If you want more tips for basic building, I know I'm basically just brushing over those things, but I do have a build guide that's perfect if you're unfamiliar with the building basics. I will link that down in the description box for you if you're interested in that as well. But that sort of hides the gap there already. We could plunk a tree, maybe like this, to make it a little bit more seamless. And that definitely works. Again, is it perfect? No, I sound like a broken record, but I just want you to realize that this is a lot of trial and error and just figuring out what you like to do when it comes to these things, figuring out your preferences. It kind of looks fun if we place some landscaping growing over the porch like this. I think that's kind of cute. I also really like this plant. I always think it's gorgeous, and then I size it up and it's humongous, but that's okay because I just think it's really pretty. So I'm placing that there. You get the gist, see? Kind of blending in those rocks with the surrounding area. A finishing touch that's very important to me personally is terrain paint. So let's just grab this Smarter Starter Soil one, make the brush a little softer, just go over all the patches you created, and also going around the house, the borders of the house, to make it look a little bit more natural. And I also like creating an edge for the pathways that we created, ever so slightly, but I just feel like that makes it look a little bit more natural. And then you can obviously just add more plants plants the way you see fit. We could create these cute hedges by the pathways. I actually think that that's really cute. You could even go ahead and put some stair railings by the stairs. Not sure which ones would be a great fit for this particular house, but maybe just these really simple ones in a darker color. When it comes to the interior, you can obviously just decorate it like you would any normal house. You do have this basement level garage in our case, so obviously you're going to have to figure out a way to place a staircase going up like that. The overlap isn't huge, so we don't have a lot of options, but we could very easily just create it like this, or maybe make it smaller, go like this, floor plan around it this way. And then of course we have a second floor as well. I did a really bad job placing those windows, but that's okay. But yeah, on the inside, it's just your regular home for you to decorate. A thing to note that annoys some people when you actually play on the ground floor level, so here in the garage or in the basement or whatever you want to turn this into, you will just see this like weird looking area that's underneath the second floor. So when you go up, that's obviously just your house, but when you go down, you don't see the house, you just see this, which is just how it works. I know it annoys some people. I had to get used to it a little bit as well when it comes to gameplay, but I don't think it's too big of a problem. But that is how you build a split level home using terrain tools. So I really hope that this video was somewhat helpful. Obviously, we just focused on using the terrain tools and how to build with those. Again, if you are interested in a full-on build guide that covers all the basics, I've got you covered. I will link that one in the description box down below for you. If you have any other suggestions for tutorials you'd like to see, by all means let me know in the comment section and I'll see what I can do for you. But this is actually going to be it for today's video, so I really hope that you enjoyed this one. You can go ahead and follow me on Instagram if you'd like as well. My username on there is SimmerySims. If you're not subscribed to my channel already, feel free to do so, and if you'd like to get a notification of every time I post a video, just click that little bell icon. I also live stream over on Twitch a few times a week, so if you like that, you can find me over on twitch.tv/SimmerySims. So I just want to say thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!